Good afternoon, everybody. I can see there's a few people waiting. We're just going to hang on till dead on 1:30, and then we'll get started. So, good afternoon and welcome everybody to just one of Birmingham City Council's Digital Leaders Week webinars. In this session, you'll hear from three key speakers. You'll hear sitting remotely, you'll hear from Azim Akhtar, the Agile Delivery Manager. You'll hear from Helen, Rees, Project Manager, and you'll hear from James Gregory, Head of ICT Programmes. Now, I know they are eager to speak to you and eager to answer your questions. And you can post your questions into the chat as we go along, perhaps being helpful and indicating who of the three speakers your question is aimed at. So we're going to hear first from James Gregory, Head of ICT Programmes at Birmingham City Council. Over to you, James.
Hi, Matthew. Thanks for having me, and I wanted to just start off actually by we'll talk about the we're going to talk today about the Fieldwork project, the digital platform that we're developing. But before I do that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the whole field of digital and transformation. So, and that's a big topic to cover, right? So I'm not going to cover it in too much detail, but I think it just serves as a preface to what we're going to hear later from Azim and Helen. And also when I did this, when I was on Digital Leaders a couple of years ago, I started talking about it. So I think this just sort of leads. There's a nice lead in terms of what we've done over the last couple of years to get to where we've got to. So and I know I don't know how many people got on the call, but I suspect if we went round and asked everybody what digital transformation means, it probably gets as many answers to that as there are people on the call. So it might be helpful for me just to say what I think it is, and therefore in that kind of context for what we're going to talk about. So and I break it down. I break the two terms down. So digital and transformation. And for me, I think about digital in the terms that Tom Loosemore defined it as, which was about applying the culture, practices, processes, and technology of the internet era to respond to people's raised expectations. There's quite a lot in that, and I think he later came back and said, with the benefit of hindsight, he'd have added data to that as well, which I think is really important. But the bit about raised expectations is for me one of the key bits of that statement. So if we think about some of the new business models that we see in our day-to-day lives at the moment, things like how Uber has become the biggest taxi company in the world without owning a single vehicle, and Airbnb, the biggest hotel chain in the world without owning a single hotel. You know, they are examples of completely new business models and, you know, real transformation. So that for me is on the one end, when we talk about transformation, that's for me, that's that sort of, it's at that kind of operating model level. Digital covers a whole range of other things as well. So, you know, there's a whole spectrum effectively from, you know, digitizing forms to digitalizing to transformation. And, you know, all of those are good things. All of those are right things to be doing. And we're doing things across that whole spectrum, actually. So, I mean, an example around that sort of people's raised expectations for me is my daughter's recently joined a netball club, and I received an email with a plethora of forms to fill out for this thing, and they're all paper forms that needed printing, completing, scanning, sending back, and that's not my expectation of how to do business these days and how to do anything these days. It should be much quicker, slicker, and then going on the website to try and make a payment for these things again just got lost, you know, and I think. So there's a whole spectrum of things, but the practicality of it all is that people expect services just to work and to work like the Ubers and like the Airbnbs of this world these days. So we're going to talk about the Fieldwork platform, and I think that is very much getting towards that operating model level transformation, and that's why we're so proud of it, really. So. When you hear from Helen and Azim, just bear in mind that, you know, we're developing a platform here for field workers. We're not developing a single point solution, if you like, and that's really important because at the moment we have 5,000 field workers, and I won't steal anybody else's thunder from the latest presentation, but they cover lots and lots of different services. So if you can imagine, we have housing officers going out in the field, we have adult social care workers going out to the field, and everything in between, basically. And what we're doing here is we're putting in a platform which will start to enable the council to change its operating model, because at the moment it needs a housing operative to go out and do housing work, and it needs somebody who does environmental health to go out and do an environmental health job. By putting this platform in place, we could potentially disrupt that and enable a completely different operating model to be put in place across the council for those kind of services. So and that's not easy, particularly in an organisation like Birmingham, where we're quite new to this. Let's be honest. I mean, digital's been around a long time. I've been talking about this for a couple of 3 years, and actually, I think it's important context to say that we insourced our service from 12 years of being run by Capita, and that was in 2019. We re-insourced it, and that was, there was basically a sort of we inherited a quite a traditional service, let's say, not what I would call a digital service, and so not long after we re-insourced the service, COVID lockdowns started, and that was actually in a funny way really helpful to us, actually, because it started to change. It changed almost overnight how people see the services the council operate, and how we go about building new services as well. Sort of forced us into working in those digital ways, so working across teams, multidisciplinary teams, co-designing things, really starting with understanding user need, and building things in a modular way, so that we don't spend lots of time delivering something which is actually of not great use, because there were people out there in Birmingham who were not able to feed themselves because they couldn't get out of their house to get food parcels. So, we very, very quickly had to stand up teams of people, and we had to develop applications which would help to fill a need in that way. So yeah, COVID kind of kickstarted us really down the route of working in a different way. And what led on from that was a realization that we needed to update our strategy, basically. So we just come off the back of an IT and digital strategy, or an IT strategy more so, actually, 2016 to 2021. So we've now refreshed our strategy. We've built a digital strategy, and we've taken some of the learning from what we did, what we learned through COVID, and started to apply some of those practices that I talked about in that Tom Loosemore definition. So we've now got 5 themes to our digital strategy. Those themes are data, and that's about using our data better. It's about doing more with the data so that we can be more proactive in services that we design for customers rather than being reactive. We've got another theme which is about customer, and that is about just building better customer interfaces, so services which customers really want to use, and that doesn't necessarily need to be digital services, but it's always giving digital as an option for people to be able to access the services, and making those digital services really well joined up. There's a theme around staff, and that's very similar focus to the customer one. It's about giving staff the tools that they need to do their jobs in the best possible way. So Fieldwork is a great example of that, where by putting a platform or tool in the hands of our staff who are out there day to day in the field talking to real people, it frees them up to be able to do their job, to be able to see more of those customers, and to be able to have their interactions much more professional than they are at the moment. There's another theme around technology, and that's just about putting the underpinning platforms and so on in place to make sure that we don't build technical debt into what we do, to make sure that we rationalize our suite of several hundred applications, that we take more control of the things that we're building, and so on. And effectively, that's the underpinning theme for all of those to allow us to do the delivery of those other things. And the final one is around skills. So, as I say, council's quite a traditional organisation, comes off the back of the Capita contract. We don't have lots and lots of digital skills. We haven't traditionally had lots of digital skills, and we're building that. So the skills theme is around top to bottom in the organisation, right from right from our leaders, so our elected members, effectively, coaching them to be able to have better conversations around and to understand what digital means to them and their citizens, right down through the organisation, through senior leaders, and then people who deliver the services themselves. So everybody has that understanding about what digital means, and has that real kind of user-centered design focus, which we want sort of pervade the whole of the council. So each one of those themes has a set of activities around it, and that is one of the ways that we're tackling digital transformation. It has to be across all of those 5 elements, and until we get all of those right, then we're going to struggle with the maturity around digital transformation. So in the meantime, we're doing things like Fieldworker. So we have a bunch of programs that we're finding motivated people who've got some great skills, really keen to learn. And you're going to hear from Helen. Now, Helen's a great example of this. So Helen put her hand up 2 years ago when I first started talking about digital and agile delivery, and said, I want a piece of that. And in fairness to her, she's absolutely thrown herself into it, and now finds herself leading, probably the biggest digital transformation that we've done in the council. So, and we've done that by pairing Helen and others as well who are interested and motivated with people who have done this lots of times before. So we bring in, so Azim, for example, somebody we brought in to help coach, and we're doing the same with other partner organisations. So we're not just waiting until we've got that full capability in place. We're actually getting people learning by doing, and we've got lots of other examples of that. So our customer program is about developing platforms to serve customers better. Our data program, we've got lots of our own people going onto that and working with partners to upskill them and so on. So I think that's probably a reasonable point for me to hand over to Helen, actually, because I guess people are really here to hear about the digital platform itself. And so big welcome to Helen, and I'll hand over to you, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Hello, everybody. I'm Helen Rees, the delivery manager on the Fieldworker project. That was blew me away a bit. That was a really lovely intro there, James. Thank you. And not a day has gone by since that 2 years, which has ever been boring or dull. It's just extremely exciting to be part of Birmingham City Council's journey in embracing Agile. So Fieldworker project, you can see it's a digital platform there, and as we go through the slides you'll see it's quite a large project, probably more similar to a program. It's in the beta project phase, so you can see it's being delivered in true agile methodology. And the question which I'm going to go to next, which you're probably thinking is, well, where did it all start? So where did it start? 2 years ago, back in 2020, our IT&D, so the director of the IT department for Birmingham City Council, his name is Peter Bishop, visited the various directorates and service areas across Birmingham City Council. So they're roughly split into about 5 or 6 directorates, from adults and social care to education and skills, inclusive growth, housing, and this is where all the frontline staff are based, and essentially they're supported by back office staff. So the Fieldworker project really does embrace, yes, the field workers, but also it will help support the workforce behind them. And what Peter noticed was, whilst supporting the citizens of Birmingham, because that's what Birmingham City Council is there for, and the field workers are that direct link to our citizens, we're conducting very similar activities out there in the field We're trying to essentially provide a service to our citizens, and we're supported by multiple processes leading to inefficiencies, and the person that feels it the most is the citizen. We're using paper-based activities, which is basically slowing Birmingham City Council down at times. And this is where we then started off on a discovery phase to understand the problem. But then we moved to an alpha phase to actually prove, could we create a digital platform? And then we moved into the beta phase, which is where we are now. And throughout this, it is heavily supported by the user research. The user research is the voice of those field workers which are supporting the citizens. So next slide. So what does it look like? So what does our digital platform look like, which we are building now in the beta phase? So here's our field worker. There's a number of different field workers there, and they're accessing the platform on their device. It's being built device agnostic, so it will work on any device that our field workers out there are using. They will log on to the digital platform the same way that they do today when they sign in. They use the same functionality, and they will need to access one or more line of business applications that they need to use whilst out in the field. There's a number there you can see, CACI, JADU, Whitespace, and whilst they're out in the field accessing those line of business applications, they'll need certain capabilities. Now, these capabilities were highlighted as key pain points that were really needed by our field workers to continue and work efficiently and effectively out in the field. So the platform needed to have the capabilities of a digitized form to be able to capture and input data. They needed to upload photographs and retrieve data in real time. They needed to see historic data, view job status, and have actual access in real time to risk markers. So when they're going out in the field, where are they at risk? And that will support our lone workers as well, but a little bit more of that to come. So we're in the beta phase at the moment. We're actually on sprint 11, so we're coming close to being able to following testing, pushing our MVP out there into the live environment. So what does our MVP look like? What does our minimal viable product, which is a set of features and functionality that are going to give value to our users whilst out there in the field as we continue to build additional functionality? So we've now created the code that will essentially allow our field workers who are on board to create a job. And they're actually, you'll probably be able to tell from this, but we are actually looking to onboard the caretakers from Birmingham City Council and our fire and risk team. So that's why you see the word block. So create a job, which would be a block inspection on a tower block in Birmingham, assign a job to a tower block in Birmingham, view a job, view the details, view a risk in real time. Is there any risk associated to the location of where our caretaker is going? They can capture data while out in the field, which would be the inspection. So they will have a digitized form on their device, which will enable them to carry out an inspection from start to finish. So that is where capture data. So that has been created. They will be able to raise a risk. So if they become across a risk on the location where they are at the tower block, they can now raise that risk. And they can submit the data, and they can also raise a repair. So whilst they're out there in the field conducting their tower block inspection, of which we have several hundred tower blocks in Birmingham, they can now raise repairs digitally. This particular service area were heavily based on paper, so we really have digitally transformed this service area and how they conduct their roles. So I'm going to come back here now to the lone worker and the risk marker notification. So within the field worker platform, we are creating a risk marker repository for Birmingham City Council. So this will be a risk marker repository holding risks now on an area, an individual, or a location. So this will enable our field workers to feel safer whilst out in the field, because they will be able to see if there's any risks attached to an area, individual, or location of where they are visiting. They will be able to raise back office staff that I'm en route, I've arrived, or I'm now departing for my next visit, which gives them that sense of enhanced security to what they actually feel today. So you'll see on the bottom here, one automated platform owned and controlled by Birmingham City Council. So I'm going to come back to that, but this is another part of the digital platform that is very different to the ways we normally deliver projects. And this is why. So these people, are our product owner group. Now, what is different about the field worker project is in the alpha phase, we reached back out to the people who we conducted the user research with. We went back out to them because they are the people who represent the business. These are the people who have the field workers who are working out in the field. They are the frontline, the team managers of the frontline staff. So they are the ones who quite rightly know what the pain points are. They know what this platform needs to do and how it should be delivered. They know the functionality and the features. So we pulled these people together to form the product owners group. This is the first of its kind within Birmingham City Council. These people were the ones who decided what functionality and features would be in our platform and when they would be built and delivered. So they prioritised our functionality and features. And they saw risk marker as a real key piece of functionality that needed to be built. They also saw lone worker. So lone worker is actually coming in the next release, but we are going to go live with 42% of our risk marker repository. So we have 35 people who meet literally bi-weekly. They gave the product its name, which is the Birmingham Guardian. They meet bi-weekly to check on how our development's going. And they own and control this platform. So as we move through the build, they're the ones that decide in the forthcoming releases what functionality and features will be in there. And this is one truly empowered team. From the first week when we met, it was very much, I would like to see this on the platform. I would like to see do that on the platform. Second week, they'd agreed their vision and it was there, and they were now saying, we believe Birmingham City Council needs the digital platform to have this functionality. Absolutely sensational. Really great to be part of this team. So what are the benefits? The benefits are you're going to improve productivity. We're going to see admin reduced. We're going to reduce DNAs. So that means do not attend. There's quite a high percentage across Birmingham City Council where people go out in the field and through no fault of their own, the citizen may have forgotten or not quite got the time right, and the visit needs to be rescheduled. But unfortunately, the field worker can't get back the time that's taken to actually travel or prepare themselves for a visit. We're going to get better collaboration across Birmingham City Council and start seeing those silo working and those walls coming down. That's going to give staff a better and increased morale. Hopefully they'll stay around longer. We're going to see safer working out there with the lone worker and the risk marker functionality, optimizing our field workers in the field, and we're going to be compliant because we're moving away from paper and we're becoming more digital. So what are the benefits the Birmingham City to our citizens, of which, you know, you've probably guessed I've got a Brummie accent. I am a Brummie myself, so it was really quite interesting for me to sit down and do this slide. We're going to create a two-way communication functionality, so that will be between the Brum account, which is where me as a citizen, if I need to interact with Birmingham City Council around you know, my bins or my council tax, I use something called the Brum account. So we're going to open up a two-way communication, which will give the ability for our citizens to be able to amend those appointments, so reduce those do not attends. You know, they've got a link then straight into the service area who is conducting the visits. So the impact is you're going to get a faster turnaround of those inquiries from the citizens. We're going to improve the service from BCC to our customers, the citizens, which is going to enhance the customer experience with the view to removing the delays that are associated with scheduling visits, but also when you have to send documentation in evidence-based. We can do that now via that two-way communication. It can either be attached out in the field where the field worker is with the citizen, or it can then be sent via the two-way communication link. With field workers now digitally capturing the data out in the field, they're going to have offline access. They can take proof of completion of a visit. You know, collaboration tools will be is another part of the functionality we want to put in. Route optimization. All of this is going to enhance the customer's experience of Birmingham City Council. It's going to improve our services, improve the perception, and it's going to actually ease the collaboration across the service areas. So me as a citizen, I'll start now seeing that I'm getting more value for money because I will be seeing a better service from Birmingham City Council. So this is the product roadmap. So you heard me talk about it a little bit earlier. So the features and functionality, they were agreed by the product owners group. And as I come towards the end of the MVP, we'll be going back to the product owners group and we will be saying, right, okay, in release 2, do you want to see lone workers still in there? And release 3, we're going to be looking at raising alerts to citizens. You know, do you then want GIS, route optimization, and build the ability to take payments out in the field? So this is very much what we plotted at the start of beta. It will now need to be revisited to see what the product owners group, what would they like to see. And my last slide before I hand over for the demo, this is the functionality that we've created and we're very proud to have created. So we have now enabled our caretaker, here he is, to no longer have to walk around with a clipboard and 10 inspection forms every day. We've now digitally enabled him or her or they by their device to now view a job at the start of the day, select a job via their device, start the inspection, complete the inspection, they can raise a repair, and they can attach an attachment. They can view a risk and they can raise a risk. Now, the one piece of information I will give you here is raising a repair. Our caretakers can quite often end up spending a couple of hours just raising repairs on the phone. So this is why this is really transformational for our caretakers. And Azim, I'm sure you'll probably share the experience when we have done a look and feel last week with a number of caretakers and how intuitive they found the platform. And I'll leave Azim to probably share the experience because Azim was actually in the room with the caretakers, but it really was sensational to see how our caretakers, of which we've got about 250, are really keen to get on board and start using the device. So that's the presentation from me on Fieldworker. And now I know I'm going to hand over to Azim. Azim, are you there to do the demo for us, please?
Hi, everyone. Excellent. So my name's Azim Akhtar. I'm an an Agile coach on this. We're going to do a demo, but just before I start the demo, one of the points that I just wanted to highlight was that we're learning a lot of what we're learning, or how we're learning, is through user research. So James mentioned the customer program. A lot of these programs are aligned in the sense that we've learned from the customer program that actually a lot of our citizens, they want us to be a lot more open, and they just want to know and understand what's happening when they raise a concern to the local authority, and again, that allows us to take that pain that they're experiencing today and understand how we can deliver that through these programs of work, and Fieldworker being one of them. So we are seeing that we're going to see change happening across these programs, and some coordinated change in terms of how we do that. Okay, let's jump into the demo. This is a live demo, so if there's any hiccups, apologies. Okay, so what you're seeing in front of you is an emulator. It's emulating my kind of mobile device here, and we're just going to run through this to show you exactly how this functions. So today I'm going to act as one of our amazing caretakers that we have that look after our low and high-rise flats, or block flats that we have, and they do a number of these inspections on those to understand any issues within those block of flats, and they do that on a daily and an annual basis. So what we're going to talk about here, or what we're going to show you, is a daily inspection that is done. So as you would expect, I have actually logged into this just prior to this, just to make sure everything's fine. But it saved my details in there, but I can log in, and we've got this hooked up to my mobile, so we'll ask for a PIN number for authentication. So let's log in. So what you see in front of you now is the main home screen, and everything you see here is going to be and is configurable. So we've got here a number of reports that can be available to the individual. They've got their main job information in there, and we'll go into there. A lot of the time will be spent within there. You've got this kind of bell icon here that is for any alerts that we want to send out to all of our field workers, or particularly to field workers, for example, in the housing division or so forth. And then you've got your logout icon there. So let's go straight into jobs. So here you've got unassigned jobs, so jobs that can be assigned to me, or I can pick those jobs up. And then you've got assigned jobs. So going into assigned jobs, the first, what you see here is, now if you've got a number of jobs, you've got a search bar at the top that allows you to search for the various jobs that you're going to conduct at that particular time. So the first job that we're going to have a look at is my Adley Gardens and an inspection of that. And just for information, all the information, all the data in here is test data, so we don't actually have any live data that's going to be viewed here. So once I go into my job, the first thing that I would see is there any risk attached to this? Now I can see that there's no risks attached to this, but I will, and if there was a risk, it will come up here, and I could go into that risk and actually view that risk that was pertinent to this particular job. Now, if I start my inspection and realize, oh, okay, there's the ceiling's going to collapse in one of the flats, or there's somebody being verbally abusive to me, I can log a risk here. Risks. And when we talk about the word or the term risks, what we're talking about here, warning markers. These are markers that we would want to place against potentially an individual or a location, so others can be identified, so others can be informed that there is a risk when you go to that location or you're going to visit a particular person. That allows us to make sure that our staff are safe, and they take the relevant precautions to ensure that they stay safe if they're going to a potential location that poses a risk to our staff. So I'm gonna log a risk against location. So we've got a number of kind of categories here. And these again are configurable in terms of we can amend these and add further ones or take ones away. I'm just going to put a test here. So I can put a description of some kind in there. I can add any contributing factors to this. This may be due to somebody's kind of disgruntled with us due to illness or so forth, and they're being abusive. Okay, I can make a submission of that. That will add that contributing factor, and then I can commit that. Is this attached to the location that I'm currently as part of my job? I'm going to say yes to that, and then submit that risk. Okay, so this risk now will not be shown straight away on my job, and the reason for that is we have a workflow behind this that would go through, and one of the a individual will need to look at the appropriate nature of that risk and whether that should be a risk that should be recorded on our main register, to ensure that we're not just placing risks on there that we don't deem appropriate. Okay, so now I'm going to go back into that same job, and let's start a inspection. And one of the things I want to say here is that everything you're seeing here, for example, this job and the forms behind the job. So if I go into the job, all of this is configurable, so we can add and amend as many forms and create as many forms as we want. So I'm going to go into the block inspection. So I select on the area that I want to inspect, and then there's a number of questions that I have as part of this. With each of those questions, I can raise, or with some of them, and this was something that the caretakers informed us about. So some of these questions would have a issue that we can raise or a repair against it. So if I've inspected the first area, I've inspected that successfully. However, I want to raise an issue. So it's a test issue, but as part of the test issue, for example, I've got a broken chair. And I want to raise an issue about that, but also I want to inform our repair team or the repair team to come and resolve this. Or there's a broken fire door, for example. I want to call them out to ensure that they can come out to do this. Now, this at this moment in time will be typically done through ringing back into the call center, waiting for them to respond, and then logging the repair with them, and then they go on to log that into the relevant back office system. But here we can now directly raise that. So what they've done is they've selected, or the caretakers have decided on a number of typical repairs that they would want to raise. I put a time frame against that, and this is all being called back from our line of business application. Which floor that sits on? So if it's on the second floor, item to be fixed. Let's say it's a fire door. Okay. Any other information? I'll just put test here for that. And then if they need to contact me, I'm going to put my mobile number. So now that's saved that as a repair. And then when I go forward and submit that, what this is doing now, and hopefully it will work in real time here, but what this is doing now is actually sending that information directly into our line of business application and raising that to repair. And what we will and this is we're still on the last 2 sprints, but what we will get here is a ID for me to then chase that up as an ongoing issue. So if I go and do my daily inspection tomorrow and it's not been resolved because some items need to be done within 24 hours, if I do my inspection tomorrow, it hasn't been resolved, I can chase that up now directly with that with the repair team. So I'll go through this and say I've inspected all of this, and you can see it's quite a lengthy form, but again, everything you're seeing here is really in our control to configure. So we can add questions, we can add components to this form as we want to. So I'll just quickly. And elements in here, some are mandatory, some may not be mandatory, but that's again elements that we can actually all configure without doing any coding. And then I want to complete the inspection. Continue. I can add a note here, and then I can also add a signature of some kind as well, or any further attachment as well. And that is me completing that inspection. Excellent. So that shows you just one service area in terms of how we've built a platform that allows us to give that ability for any service area now for us to be able to build a form for them to be able to for us to configure that form to how they want within this overall platform. And as we start with the caretakers, we'll then move across to the other service areas where the real power of this then starts to come out is the fact that our field workers then, regardless of the line of business application that they need in order to deliver their service, they are sitting on a single platform that allows us to understand. For example, if I'm a caretaker now and I'm doing my inspection, so I'm in here doing my inspection. As part of that, I realized, oh, there's some fly tipping that's happened here. I would want to now straight away come back out of that, go into a fly tipping form, be able to take that picture and send that information directly to that particular service area that can deal with that. And it may not be fly tipping. It may be actually something else that needs attention from another service area, not necessarily a repair. And it allows us then to allow the service areas to have a greater level of transparency, but also working together as well, and pass information from one service area to another service area. Okay, I think that's the end of my my demo. I'm going to hand back over to James and Matt.
Thanks very much, Azim, and Helen as well for your presentation. That was really interesting, and it's actually really great to see the demo, because that brings it to life, doesn't it? So yeah, I mean, I hope that's been interesting to people. It's us tackling a common problem in a really different way, and at the same time building a platform which will not only be useful for us for the delivery of this particular application to field workers, but will be a platform that we'll be able to reuse for future purposes as well. So what should can we open up the floor, Matthew, for questions? You're on mute, Matt.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to Teams. We've had a few questions in through the external channel while that's been going on. If anybody is able to post a question as well, please do. I think, James, we'll give you the first question because you're here now. Somebody's asked how you would describe Birmingham City Council's agile journey so far.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, and it's very much an ongoing journey. So yeah, I like the way it's been phrased. So far, I mean, I wrote a blog post on this fairly recently, actually, about some of the trials and tribulations of trying to trying to do things in a different way, in a sort of that digital agile delivery type way, within what has been a fairly traditional organisation. And I think there were the two elements that I pulled out from that were really the first one was about the governance that the governance that an organisation like a council has in order to get things done doesn't always get decisions made as quickly as we might like in order to maintain the pace that you would expect to see in an agile delivery, and that's quite difficult. Because you've got a lot of very motivated people wanting to deliver results and ship code and features and so on. On the other hand, you've got an organisation which wants to make sure that every single I and T is dotted in terms of value for money and so on and so forth. And both of those things are right. And the challenge we've had is finding the balance between the two. And I think we'll get there. We've had to just be very, very patient in this first implementation. And that's why I referenced when I first came on this call about having talked to digital leaders 2 years ago about setting this project up. And at that point, we were just finishing off our discovery piece. So it's taken 2 years to get to go around the loops of governance and so on. And of course, COVID didn't help in that at all, because that completely changed our focus. And meant that we were focused on just the job at hand of helping citizens cope with COVID. But since then, the other delays have largely been down to governance. So yeah, in that sense, we've learned a lot, and I think as we go through, as I say, as we roll out the digital strategy, and we start to work on that digital skills piece, start to educate people about what agile is, what it isn't, and what digital is, people will get more comfortable with the iterative development and delivery of things. So I think it's going as well as can be expected, and I think we've had some really good wins. I have to say, through COVID, we did deliver some really good stuff. We've delivered things in the home to school transport space. We are delivering our huge customer program as an agile delivery, and the agile things that we're doing are just keep growing and growing, and as we do so, we're getting more and more people becoming confident with it as well, which is absolutely one of the key things for me that will be a sign of success, is that we are able to grow our own talent internally around that, and we're absolutely doing that. I can say there's a number of people even on this call who 2 years ago wouldn't have had any involvement in agile delivery, and who now have had significant amounts, and we've got people delivering some pretty big chunky things now. So I think all in all, given where we started and how long we've been doing this, I think we're making really good progress.
Well, thanks, James. And we've had a question as well from somebody here, Louise Milner, and I guess it's kind of sort of opening up and sharing a bit more. She says, "Well done, all. But what other digital projects are upcoming at Birmingham?"
Yeah, great question, Louise. Thank you. Yes, one of the things about the strategy is that we want to start creating effectively. We want to start what's the word, resourcing teams rather than projects, right? So, and this is, you know, when you're talking to other councils and central governments and others who have really got to grips with digital delivery, that is, you've talked very much more about resourcing teams rather than projects. And what that allows you to do is create a capability and increase the size of a team, and then push more work into that team. So we've got the customer programs are really critical, and it's huge. It could be huge. It's already quite big, and that's been shaped around our customer strategy. But what we're finding is when we have demand coming through the front door from our services, a lot of those things are customer related things. And so rather than as we would have done in the past, we would have spun up a separate project for each one of those things, one of those demands that comes through the front door. We've now got a program which we can push those things into to say, right, that program now has its own product owner, and that product owner will take that new demand and say, where does that rank in terms of importance and so on within the scope of everything else which is in there? And is it important enough that we need to increase the size of that team, or can we just push that thing down the list a little bit? So we've constantly got things that we wouldn't necessarily previously have seen as being digital projects being put into that digital program. And that's going to be the way forward. So we're going to have a program around the data strategy theme as well, which we already have, and things again go through to that data program which come through the front door. We'll do the same, I think, for the staff tools and technologies. So the field worker being the first of those, but there's going to be lots of others where we're building tools and technologies for staff. And again, we will create a team or a set of teams around that digital strategy theme, and things will drop into that pot. So things are coming through all the time, Louise, and it's just we're choosing to see them differently and react to them differently to how we have in the past.
Thanks, James. Thank you. And thanks, Louise, for the question. I'm going to go to Azim now, Azim Akhtar, for this one. Somebody's asked about other organisations benefiting from the work that you've completed so far. So a bit about that experience and how it could be applied elsewhere.
Yeah, so we're really keen to share the experience that we've had on the Fieldworker project, and that is through some of the playback sessions that we've got that we can share from discovery to alpha to beta. We are taking the step to develop everything that we've done in open source, meaning we will be publishing that openly for other local authorities to take benefit from that. We've got a number of collateral in terms of designs and design patterns that we're more than happy for organizations to contact us, especially other local authorities, to come and contact us to talk a bit about how the design pattern was applied to the project that we were in. I'm more than happy to kind of share that experience as a whole. So yeah, I think it's really keen, and the whole team is really keen to share some of that experience. James, you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to come back in actually on the previous question around how's it going, how's Agile going, and actually I've noticed that we've got Tom Lowndes from the Department for Levelling Up on the call as well. And so, you know, I think one of the reason Tom's on the call is because we were successful some months ago in getting some funding from the local digital fund, and that for me was a real a real kind of point of validation for us as a team and as a program, that we were doing something important enough and big enough and far-reaching enough for the local digital fund to set up and say, actually, we're going to give the Birmingham City Council quite a chunk of funding to carry on with this program and to see it through. And what Tom's doing is he's helping us to open up channels to other local authorities who may be interested in, as Azim said, the sharing of this technology, the common components that we're building, and so on. And so for me, that's getting that kind of recognition is was quite something for Birmingham.
And then I think Azim, you're coming back in, aren't you?
Yeah, just one point I think would be this is kind of articulates the journey that we've been on. So we had a session last week with our caretakers. We had an individual, a really nice individual who's been with the local authority for about 38 years plus, and he's a caretaker. And he was so eager to utilize the technology. So we managed to get the app on his device. He went away in his own time, spent a couple of hours seeing how he can raise an inspection, raise an issue, and raise a repair. And he came back saying, "Yeah, this is really good." And I think that was a true reflection of the work that Helen and the team have been doing in making and creating a product that was serves the needs of the individuals, but also has that experience that we should be digitally creating products to actually serve. It's easy to use. It's something that anyone can just pick up. So I think that was really strong as a message back to us.
Well, that's good timing coming in with that, Azim, because there's a question which really is the reverse of that, I think. And I think we'll give this final question to Helen to comment on. And you've talked about the buy-in, you've talked about the success, but what about any pushback that you experienced when you're embarking on something using a very new, different methodology? The question here asks, what pushback have you had from the business when embarking on delivering the project using Agile methodology? You may be on mute, Helen. I'm not sure. It might be me.
Oh, how embarrassing. I think there's two answers to that. So I'll make it quick because I know we've only got a couple of minutes here. But from the business side, so for the people who are out in those service areas, they have wholly embraced and really enjoyed being on the Agile journey with us. We're listening to their pain points and we're actually turning those into user needs, which then become features and functionality, as long as all the product owner group agree. And then you have the IT and D, the people like me and who actually are the ones who are creating and being part of the field worker project team who deliver it and who will also take it into support. So this is a very different way of delivering a project. And as James touched upon it, this is about putting teams together and ring fencing teams. And it was a big ask, from the field worker team on IT&D work relentlessly and excellently to keep the lights on seamlessly for Birmingham City Council. We do a fantastic job, and I want to raise that profile wherever we can. And so when I come across with something that was really quite new, Agile technology, and by the way, I need X, Y, and Z resources, and actually, can I have them ring fenced, please? It was really about getting around a table, working together, collaborating together, sharing how we would use the resources and meeting regularly and often to actually take those fears away, and actually working together between the field worker team and IT&D, so becoming one, we could actually achieve what could have been on the face of it really quite a tricky task to ask for resources. So yeah, it's a journey, and that's why even a small win is it's just brilliant, so exciting. Azim.
Yeah, and I think I just want to say that this is about people. What we found in the change that we went through was that when you keep people informed with regards to how you're going to progress with this, when you keep them engaged. So we decided to do this in partnership with the business, not the fact that we knew exactly their needs, we understood their pain points and go away for 6 months and come. We said, no, we want them all the way through this, every step of the way. And I think that was the real success in this. Yes, there were individuals who said, I don't understand how you're going to deal with my requirements because they're particular to my service area. And they had to give that kind of leap of faith. We had to work with them closely, keep them informed, empower them to make the right decision in terms of what they needed. And that partnership then really resulted in what we see right now. And I think that's a true reflection of really actually listening to what in this instance the customer, which was all the service areas, wanted, and responding to that need and that pain.
Brilliant. Thank you. Over to you, James. I think that's all we've pretty much got time for.
I think so. My clock says 2:29. So yeah, well, thanks to Helen and Azim for your contribution to this, and Matthew for comparing it for us, and most of all, thanks to everybody who took the time out of the diaries to listen to what we've got to say. Do ping any of us if you want any more information about what we're doing, and thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your
Bye.
day.